everybody to another episode of the Monitor Keeping Podcast. I'm here with Kai. It's just going to be the two of us today. We got some catching up to do. Things have been busy as always. I think that's my excuse, like every 2-3 weeks when we finally get to making an episode. But Kai, how are you, man?
Man, I'm just really getting over COVID. Yeah, just been out of it for a good week or so. Ever since I don't know that the weekend that I went to the wedding, and yeah, man, my own friends got me sick, and so sharing. We're standing out there sharing water bottles and stuff, or all the food that gets passed around, stuff like that. It was bound to happen. I was dodging it for a good 2.5 years, man. I was really, really lucky because I have asthma and it didn't really affect me. It just made me really, really tired, and I was definitely hit with something for a few days. But yeah, what's crazy, man? We couldn't slow down at all. Like me and Lynn's work and what we had to do on the normal. Yeah, just even the bare minimum on the normal. Shoot, I was kicking our butts already, and I had to schedule it, wake myself up, dude. Sometimes I wouldn't get up for hours. Yeah. And then finally get up to do it, but I've been feeling a little bit better.
Did the grasshoppers do okay?
Yeah. That was part of what I was mentioning. Is just it's just nonstop. So, I actually filled up all the orders that were supposed to go out. Got this next week prepped for more orders, and basically didn't skip a beat. Might have.
Crazy.
And what's crazy, I had to do bank stuff too. Like I had my paperwork came in, and you have to do stuff at filing at a certain time frame. So you can't. Yeah. You got to pay certain fees and things like that. And so I actually haven't been late on any of those stuff. I just whenever I get it in the mail, go and boom, go to the bank. Or take care of what I have to take care of. So all that's been added into this recovery time, which isn't really recovery time at all. Just working through it. Yeah, man. So how about you, man? It's been
busy. Just a lot of the same. I've had to kind of choose where my time goes. So I really like posting and letting everybody in on what's going on with the animals, and keeping up on social media so everybody can see and interacting. But that's one of the things I kind of had to choose. Like I got to cut back a little bit. So I'm still there working with the animals and having fun. I'm just not letting everybody in, just because even taking the time to whip out a phone and taking a picture.
You caught 20 minutes. That's like you caught up 20 minutes, just gone like that, and then you got to get right back to it. I find myself in the room. Yeah, I should only been in there for an hour, but doing all this other, taking pictures in between stuff, it adds on.
Yeah, so it's that kind of stuff. I've had a ton of babies hatching. I had several different Ackie clutches that have hatched in the last, I'd say, 4 or 5 weeks.
Oh, nice.
Kims are hatching still today. They started last night, so there's 2 more that need to pip today. 3 have already come out. And
nice.
Shoot, so I'm still there's still a few other things that I think will snakes that I think I'm going to be getting some eggs from. We're getting a little late, so I'm starting to wonder about them. Hopefully everything's all right, because they have usually laid at the end of June, beginning of July, so we're getting a little later in July now. So a little bit of worry there, but we'll see what happens. The females still look healthy and good. What else is going on? I actually have a couple weeks off.
Nice.
I'm going away for a little bit because part of this is for my birthday. Turning the big 4-0 this year. So yeah, oh my God, I don't feel 40. People talk about 40, and maybe that's a good thing, but I don't feel 40. It's funny talking about ants. I just saw some ants over here. But other than that, I'm trying to I'm really trying to work with my time. I think since last year with COVID, it kind of let me into some things. There's only so much you can do when you tank, when you're down with monitors, like, and you can't do the daily operational things. Stuff gets real quick. You know, it's like, oh, I can't spend 5 to 7 days down or longer sometimes because
Oh man,
you
even
know,
2 or 3 days.
yeah,
It's a whole lot of all the waters you have to change. If you're doing nesting stuff, you gotta attend to those things. And then not to mention the feeding. Mine right now is swatting males from taking the females' foods. Right now, that's I got
yeah,
all four. Yeah, all three, four males, just so eager, and that takes a lot of time because I have to take out each male, give him technically his space in the empty enclosure. You know what I mean?
right,
Just to feed him, and then remember to put him back after all the mess too, right? And so it's like that times three or four males. It's a it's a lot of juggling.
yeah,
Yeah, just because I want the female, I'm very strict on what the female eats. I just can't, toss it food and turn a blind eye. You know what I mean? Or not really even turn a blind eye, but just kind of say forget about it, right? Um,
right.
the females eat a certain fill, and they eat certain types of foods rather than just mice and eggs or anything like that. Like I feed them more strict diet of things, so that way it doesn't get all um, they get all obese on me. You know what I mean? It's just enough for them in the eggs and things like that.
Yeah,
So, oh man, it's
yeah,
just
man.
getting back into it. It's just
I remember last year I went over to pull some python clutches. I don't think I had any. I may have had one or two like Aki clutches to pull during that time, but that like 10 days stretch, I had two python clutches to pull. I remember driving over to the warehouse. I'm already sweating just from walking outside, feeling dizzy. Then I get into the warehouse. It's like the beginning of August, and that humidity and heat hit me.
yeah,
And I remember just thinking, I hope I don't pass out here, and
yeah.
getting dizzy, but trying to pull these clutches, putting them in the incubator, and then just going home and like
Yeah,
dying for 12 hours before I get up again.
yeah,
And yeah, it kind of it makes you think, okay, what can I when you run things like you're healthy, you're good, and you run things so fast, so hard, you it kind of gives you some perspective, like, oh crap, anything happens, I can't do this. If
yeah,
God forbid a family thing happens, you got to go out of town, or you got to take
yeah.
care of a loved one, or
That's why I barely go anywhere, man. Like being invited to things, important stuff, and it's got to fit between like I don't know, a 6 or 8 hour schedule. And I drew it a little bit further. Before it was only 4 to 6 hours that I could be gone. Like if I needed to go back home to San Diego, right? That's only two
yeah,
hours. So I can fit in about an hour and a half drive, 2 hour drive, and then do what I need to do and then leave, which is like a family event, some baby shower or something like that, right? But even then, like I try to leave at a certain amount of out at a certain time frame too. So if it's 6, 7 o'clock, it's already starting to get dark. I'm already headed. I'm leaving. So that it also has to
yeah,
fit. Yeah, I can basically be gone from the grasshoppers and the monitors are okay. It's the grasshoppers that you
yeah,
know. Yeah, so you've gone too long, come back all tired, and you don't really tend to the things you're supposed to or things like that. So yeah,
yeah,
now, but I've drawn it back a little bit. Like I've given myself now 6 to 8 hours if I really needed to go somewhere. But yeah, I can't. I got to turn down a lot of just anything, just to
yeah.
do, just to do without. I mean, it doesn't involve the reptile stuff, like family stuff or hanging out. It's kind of what I have to sacrifice though, because this is what I wanted, right? It's like
Right.
we built all this stuff, but at the same time, I can't just because I want to go have fun. It's like now it's a committed thing, and
Right.
yeah, I'm not missing out on any. I mean, I am, but I'll see them again or whatever. It's nothing too crazy, but it's more so now. Dang, like you're committed 24/7, 365 to this, even when you're sick, when you're got things to do or get invited to cool stuff, or yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it can be a hassle for sure, for sure. I don't even have a ton of like I got rid of a fair amount of little stuff that I had around, random turtles, random snakes,
Mm-hmm.
geckos. Man, I had to simplify so much just because yeah, I didn't give them the time that they deserved or that I thought I'd be with doing everything else, so I
Yeah.
decided to just really focus on the monitor stuff and not all the extra pets and things like that, that I had around.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so trying to utilize that space too, and I haven't undone their enclosures yet, just because man, I've been kind of burnt out, and just really trying to get that oomph to go and move 10 cages outside because I'm not using them anymore, and then get
I
all
hear
those
you.
cleaned up, and it's moving the soil inside those cages.
Oh, I dread it, man. You
So
know, I got some big exoterras to move, but it's moving them by myself. And even when I break them down, break the doors off and everything, I mean,
you do all
you
that.
know, yeah, because I can't risk my back going out either. That'll just drop me
Yeah,
for
yeah,
uh, a while, and
that'll
so
be worse, right? So
right. So yeah, man, I get it. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get over there. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And then I get over there. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that.
yeah,
I'm just do
that
this and
can
do that.
wait. That can
Yeah,
wait. Yeah,
yeah. But I'm at that point. Like right now, I got a little time off. Um, I have to get things done. I have to maximize this. So I kind of put it out there on Instagram, but I'm doing a pretty good sale on the Ackies just because one, I need to get rid of them.
yeah,
I mean, I don't have to. I'll be able to take care of them, but I want to get rid of them because there's more coming behind them, and I want to turn that into basically going right back into the warehouse stuff to fast track all the projects I want to get done with a little bit of time I have. So hopefully that's what's going to happen. I can get some other things done, like that whole attic fan all
yeah.
installed, and like today before we got on, I was finishing hooking up. So I'm learning how to do this whole like Wi-Fi smart like home hub kit thing, and I had to pick a direction because it's like you either got Apple Home Kit, you got Alexa, whatever, blah 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 blah, and so trying to figure out what I needed to set up. So I had to put like my iPad over there at the warehouse to act as the hub, and then I can now run everything through that so I can control it on my phone away. So I still have some other plugs to set up
Man,
and
you're doing a whole lot. That's
yeah.
yeah,
So right, I'm at the point now. I had this little project where I filled up that water barrel for my swamp cooler, so I could
yeah,
have not only the 10-gallon reservoir but another 55 gallons, so I wouldn't have to go over there every day to fill it up. And now, because I don't need it really past like 9 o'clock, and I don't need it before noon. Most of the time, like 2 o'clock, I can
yeah.
do without it in the warehouse. So now I can actually control it remotely. So now that water reservoir's life gets extended even more because I don't either have to go over there and use my own time to turn it off. I can do it remotely, or I don't have to leave it running. So what would last me like 3.5 days will now last me a full week.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of nice and setting things up that way so I can just the time going over there. If I can control all the lights and I have the choice of putting things either on timers or just controlling it straight from my phone. And I got a couple more of those Govee little temperature sensors and humidity
Yeah.
sensors. And so now I got a pretty good idea all over the warehouse, in the incubator, on the main floor, up on the loft, of what my temperatures are at. So I can kill lights in one part. I can turn on and off other fans. It's getting there, man. It's
Yeah,
now,
that's a lot of automated stuff. That's nice. That's real nice.
yeah, and trying to hook it up so it's all safe, so I don't have like daisy chain issues of cords hanging out of cords, and then
Yeah.
making sure the cords are also not in the way. Because the worst thing in the world is, you got some, as I'm finding out, some Dorianus doing some bluff charge on you, and you got like 3 cords that you're tripping over or in your face. You know, it's like so get all that stuff flush and
Yeah.
looking nice. And
Lynn gets on my case
man,
about that stuff, man. Yeah, she makes
yeah,
sure she makes sure all the cords are like up in the back, and nothing is just
yeah,
hanging out in the open and things like that. Yeah, it's a tight enough space already for us to have cords. So they're behind stuff at the far end of things, but yeah, I can't have it all bad like that. Definitely no daisy chain.
right.
Whatever is available to come from the wall, or whatever is able to come from
Mm-hmm.
that one surge protected outlet, whatever. That's it. Yeah, I try not to add too many more extension cords on
Yeah,
there. Yeah, man.
yeah.
It's a,
That's what I'm doing. So the thing I got, it's this so I have like quad outlets, right?
yeah,
There's three on one side of the warehouse, there's three on the other side. So on the longer walls, I have three of these quad outlets on each. I have one quad outlet up in the ceiling, and that's on one section, and then in the other section of the warehouse is the same thing. It's
yeah,
mirror image. So all the animals are just in one part right now.
yeah,
So these plugs that I got, they're kind of cool. So they're Wi-Fi plugs. They have three outlets each. So I have to plug one of those in. Now I have an extra three outlets from that. So potentially, what is that? So I have 12 outlets now for each quad. So I can have 12. What is 72? Is that right? 72 outlets I could have now, as long as I'm not overloading this. That's a lot of power, but to do it safely, so I'm just running like the next power strip, but not overdoing any of the power strips out of that. And then the cool thing is each one of those individual outlets I can turn on or off independently. So not just the whole three plug unit, but each outlet in there I can do remotely. So I have to label them all so I know what I'm, turning on or turning off. So it could be like the OG Ackies, the originals, or the fan, or the transition tub, and marking all these things. So it's actually pretty cool. And then now I can control it just from my phone, or I can, if I remember the name, like so. If I want to turn on, I got to learn how to do this, what suits me. So on the west wall, I'll call one the west wall, one the east wall. I can say, "Hey Siri, turn off west wall," and so all the outlets on that side will go off, and or turn it back on. So I got to play with it to really figure out what works for me. So that way I can just talk to my phone and say, "Hey, turn this on, turn that off," and but also make sure I set up the camera outlets so that I'm still able to monitor everything that's going on in there without turning the cameras off. So that's where I'm trying to get to. It sounds all fancy, but this is all this to buy back my time,
yeah.
So if I can watch it remotely, then I don't need to necessarily be over there. And my time over there, instead of turning off or on lights, which I'm having to do in the summer right now and playing that game, I can just now go over the once a day to do food and water, and if I need to, and then that's all I need to do. And some days some days I have all the time in the world. Other days I have no time.
Right.
So it's nice having this available. But yeah, that's what I got messing around with. You should do it. Well, you're at home anyway, but
Yeah, I'm mostly at home anyways. But no, I've gotten a couple things, just more gauges and stuff like that to look at some of the temperature fluctuations that I was dealing with my incubator. But yeah, other than that, I haven't really jumped the gun yet and bought all that stuff. I just spent a bunch on UV lamps and buying I just bought like basically T5 setups for everybody to get them back, because remember we talked about the smaller LED UVB bulbs and all the other ones, even the ones that you got for me in that white box
yeah,
from Next. Like they just it just doesn't. It's not that they don't work. It's just they didn't really fit my needs. Either they're too small, too narrow, or that one I got from you. Those are just quite strong. That female's back though.
Yeah.
She was only kind of like closing her eyes a lot for like a good week, but after that, she's now back to the normal get
So
up.
you want to share that a little bit? Because, I've mentioned in past episodes that I do use now some UV. Well, I always did. I was always kind of like testing out different things.
Yeah,
But I have other cages that I just totally have never used UV on these animals. And I have to be
yeah,
honest, still, I see no difference. If I'm being totally honest with everybody, I see absolutely no difference. But I'm still testing for long term effects and thinking down the line at like F3, F4 for my own productions and so on. Maybe I'll see a benefit or maybe I won't, and I'll share that with you guys. But one of the things I have seen and one of the things I've talked to other people about, which Kai's kind of referencing, is too much UV. What does it look like in a monitor? And this is a thing that happens. I've seen very similar things in the way that animals begin to start failing when they're exposed to too much UV. And you think, oh, that can't be. It totally is. It really is a
yeah.
thing. And so, Kai, if you want to describe what you were seeing.
Um, Normally my basking spots with the bulbs I use are about 10 inches to um, 12 inches away from the actual bulb in the basking site. So it gives me, a good 130, 140 gradient, give or take. Sometimes just 120. It really just depends on the distance, but I keep it roughly around there. And then utilizing and trying new bulbs. I tried this one UV bulb that I kind of got from Alan, and he's been using them, but he has them in taller enclosures. So then they're desert species that he's using them on mostly, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So then those are he's using them on like flabbies and stuff. So the mangroves are a little bit different. They're like a jungle type of monitor, so they're exposed to more shade and coolness. Not that they can't get to it, but it's just they're more natural range, has a lot of foliage and cover. So they it's like a shade dweller. Or they prefer some type of l- I guess low amounts of UV to really like where they're at and how to set it up in the enclosure rather than having it so bright. So I tried that tried that one bulb, um, and at about I'd say 15 or 12 inches, it was reading pretty high, like a good 4.5, even 5, right? And on my UV meter that I was using. So I had the UV meter basically at where the basking site is, and then I didn't really think about it so much just because I've used UV on them before, but I not at the level of that bull, and so that bull basically I don't know if it blinded my animal or there's just so much UV exposure within that. It was really only on her for about like 30 hours, maybe like a day and then part of another day, but not like a full 2 or 3 days or even a week. Literally on, and then once I noticed her close her eyes, and I shut it off completely. So, but yeah, for a few days she showed symptoms of I don't know what seemed to be lethargy, right? And nothing. She was still eating. As soon as she smelt the food, she was on it, but her eyes were just kept closed. So, she
Mm-hmm.
could basically be using her tongue to navigate and going through the enclosure rather than just cruising over if she wanted to. Yeah, just signs like that, right? And so, really, I just hope that the animal got better, and it did. It didn't seem to be like if it was to be permanent like that, it'd be able to be fine. It was just I'd have to feed it a little bit more tentatively and things like that. But it seemed to be able to navigate through the enclosure blind or eyes closed without a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I took off the UV. Really, I don't have anything on there now, and then I ended up doing just more research on what bulbs I should get, and for going from using small LED type UV bulbs and the one that Alan gave me, which is kind of bigger. It's almost like 3 or 4 inches in diameter. So it's not a little tiny bulb. And I thought, that could be a good one to use just because going um, going looking at the bulb, it can provide a bit more coverage than the small little tiny LED bulbs that are only like an inch or an inch and a half. Um, so yeah, I ended up getting some T5s, more linear type bulbs, and yeah, I just literally just put them together. Now just gonna be hooking them up slowly when this next week. Now that I'm back to more normalcy and energy wise, um, yeah, I'm just trying to see how good UV can be for them. I've always used some type of UV for them growing up. Maybe not all the enclosures all the time, but when it came to keeping a lot of them, and when I was trying to breed them and things like that, I'd have like power suns on next to floodlights, or the for a long time I had this one big enclosure that I was having everything out of, all the successes essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're coming out of this enclosure that had a bunch of it just had one 24-inch 5.0 Reptisun UVB bulb, just one of the very first original type of UV bulbs. And that seemed to work until I got rid of that enclosure, and those fixtures are hard to find. They mostly come
Yeah.
in the very linear T5s now. They don't really come like the old fluorescent bulbs anymore. The fixtures are extremely hard to find. And so, yeah, I ended up having to not basically figure out new methods and new UV bulbs. And I've been actually at it for a couple years now, just buying stuff, testing it out, seeing how it lasts. Is some stuff, I don't really get to that fast because there's not a major need for it. But I was using mega rays and things like that. It's just they didn't work that great. So yeah, man, just trying to find the right UV without burning my animals' eyes, or you can actually burn their skin too by too much UV exposure,
Yeah.
and then that area turns black. Um, yeah,
Right.
it's UV burn. That's what they
So
call.
I want people to understand this, and this isn't a knock on right now whether to use or not use UV. It's just if you're going to use it, understand that with certain bulbs like the mega rays, animals are forced to be exposed to UV to get warm, okay? Because it's their heat source. So you are, in fact, making them choose UV. And I'll go ahead and say this for monitors, it's not always a good thing. If those bulbs are not far enough away, then you're going to end up with a situation like Kai was talking about. I've seen it. I've seen young animals die within 12 hours in a setup like that, and I'm going to get knocked around for this, but I attribute that to oversaturation of UV, and basically they sit on the basking spot, especially if it's at an angle. They start closing their eyes, real similar to what Kai was saying. They might still be with it for a little bit, and all of a sudden, it's like they just fall off the log and they are dead. And I've had this in my own experience. And then I had a guy reach out to me. I found a study on it out of the UK that referenced the same thing. This, I think, was done in 2013. That kept noticing similar things with overexposure to UV. And then I had a guy hit me up about Tristis. After I shared it with a couple other people, we were talking about some different instances where similar things have happened. And then I had a guy hit me up about Tristis, and basically, hey, he lost his group of Tristis because of the same reason, that they all went down the same way. And it was what he determined, that overexposure to UV. So understand that it can happen, and I guess maybe what I should have said is when I said I use UV in some cages and with some animals because I like to test things out. It's always in a position that the animals are never exposed to more than like 1 or 2 at the highest, because I have a little reader, right? So I don't put them under there at a 4. I don't put them under there at a 5. I make sure that they have like a 1, 2 at the highest with the flavies. It's only on one spot that they can really do that. It's only if they pile up their own dirt by digging somewhere else that they can even get to that. Because when it's all flat, it's about a 1 to 1.2. So it's much less than I guess what would be out there recommended because it's always constant, for that daytime period that's always constant. So I want people to think about if you're going to use something like this, like the mega rays, make sure that it's at a far enough distance away where you're not going to oversaturate your animal. Almost give them, I would say, keep it at like a 1 or test it out, watch your animal's behavior because it's always going to be constant so that when they are forced to go to that one spot to get heat, they're getting that exposure, but it's not an oversaturation of that. Okay. Their bodies are able to process it and deal with it. Or like Kai is doing, using the T5s, they're usually attached differently. They're not in the same configuration as the basking bulb, so they can actually get away from it. And the way I use the LEDs, they're 2 separate fixtures, so they can choose to bask and not necessarily be exposed to that spot of UV, especially with the dwarf monitors where the smaller, narrow beam makes sense. They can choose to be on that side if they want to, and be in a spot where they're both getting basking and UV, or they can choose to not be in that spot and not being exposed to UV. So they have these different choices. If you're just giving them one choice and you see these similar things, I would say get rid of that immediately because your animal's probably circling pretty quick.
Yeah, it's just too much UV. They're technically not even basking all day in the wild. They're kind of bouncing in and out of the shade, hiding in crevices and things like that. So 12 to 14 hours of UV might be a little bit much.
Right. Absolutely. They have no cover, there's no daytime nighttime cycle. I would say just daytime cycle, because the other thing with UV is that there's a lot of places where, like, in the summer, you're not actually getting any UV reading outside till about maybe 9 o'clock in the morning, wherever you're at, for example. And then it increases through the day until the sun's right overhead at its strongest. And then it drops off as the sun's going down again because of the way it works through our atmosphere. Okay, so even though you can still see the sun, it's sunny outside, and it might be the middle of summer. If it's 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening, the sun's going down, you're going to have a very dramatic drop in UV than what you think is available. So understand when people see monitors and you read these accounts of people seeing monitors, especially desert species, they're out in the mornings. They might be out in the evenings, but a lot of times you're going to see them out in the mornings. When people find them midday, they're usually flipping things for them. I can't say all of them because you do have a lot that are just like wandering around, but they're not stationary necessarily basking in full sun in the middle of the day. All right.
They're hiding around that side.
Right. Yeah. Or the sun, the UV is not that intense because UV could be a problem. Just the temperature from that could be a problem. I think one of the accounts where Eric and Owen found a monitor that's basically overheating. So that is a thing. You can overheat your animals. In captivity, what that might look like is just all of a sudden you're hearing like a lot of wrestling around in your cage. That animal's all amped up. It's probably trying to find a way out, or it's digging for a cooler layer of substrate or something like that. Pay attention to those sounds in your cage. If you're not used to hearing that and all of a sudden it sounds like your animal's freaking out, pay attention. Go look, go reevaluate what's that animal trying to do, because it could turn into a bad situation. Or on the overexposure to UV side, it could be that you're not hearing anything, and that could be bad too. But all right, I'm getting off my soapbox. I'm talking too much. But I just want people to understand that, because I've seen that happen.
Yeah, it's definitely like a thing where monitors and UV, it's still a little bit unknown. It's not like with chameleons, it's like a for sure. Other little lizards, it's a for sure. That where the UV is quite beneficial. But man, going with the monitors, it's it's still this topic here a little bit, where it's like some people see and do fine without it, and some people swear by it. So yeah. I'm in the middle of both. I kind of have seen it, and I've utilized it with basically producing animals without UV. But then I've also seen it do things where they hang out underneath it and stuff like that. And so, you know, uh, yeah, who am I to really know? I'm just a guy messing around with some bulbs and losing. Yeah, just
I
yeah. So
I think it'd be cool if you could just set up like a test cage for all different reptiles
I
that
don't
was
have
big
that
enough.
space.
I know, but that was big enough to actually provide a full-on like basking spot with no UV, and then another one that incorporates UV. Um,
Yeah, I can do that in a couple cages, I guess. I could.
yeah, but
My,
then
my
you
eight.
mess with your own temps in those cages because you got to figure out how to cool them down too if you're running two bulbs like that. And
Yeah, yeah,
um,
I have. I luckily that's the other side of the enclosure. That's for the female side, you know. So
hmm
that's the tough part with me having when I have to separate the two, right? Then all of a sudden, the side to support the female or to support the opposite one has to be on, and so then I have to kind of like juggle the bulbs a little bit on the male side. He technically gets slightly chillier temps while I have to balance out her side, and so
yeah,
it's fine because she can handle it. She needs that, but the male, he doesn't have to have it exactly. So
yeah,
then it's only for the time that she's nesting, which is days, and then he goes right back to being able to go on both sides and things like that. And yeah, man, my my seeing and paying attention to me utilizing the gate now, right?
yeah,
The partition that's got a little latch door on it, right? So I have those in most of my enclosures now. Just about all of the big ones that I utilize to breed has one of those in there, and my timing has been pretty good. I think just as far as what I'm reading for animals. Man, sometimes though, I, I used to read quite wrong, and then they'd end up fighting, and I'd have to separate them out. But lately, it's been pretty good on what I'm able to kind of pinpoint is happening. Um, and so, yeah, I'm just really trying to get it where I'm not really just guessing. I am guessing, but there's a lot more that I'm paying attention to now, rather than just being like, all right, she's fat. Let me put her in. Um, Now they're hanging. They gotta be like hanging at the partition, separated enough times. Basically, me witnessing them trying to get to each other, right? And then that's when I'll hit the latch. Um, this last several months, I've been actually cooling them down during that cooler spring that we technically had, where the weather wasn't so hot. And but yeah, just for spring, I technically fed them a whole lot less, gave them barely amounts of heat, and now they're still gradually going up. So they're not technically there yet, where they're developing all those follicles, because it's really only been a good month or so. But give them a couple more months, and hopefully I'm able to get some eggs out of them. But I have a couple pairings now of some Kyle and stuff, three altogether. Um, so yeah, just working with a little bit more this year, and just trying to not kill lizards.
yeah,
That's the thing is try, but at the same time I know there's a threshold. I can't just say forget about it, or more so just forget that the female and the male is there
yeah,
together without paying attention, taking looks. Even when nothing's going on, maybe all the bad stuff happened already, which can happen fast. It's literally the male biting the female. That takes a second. They go their separate ways, and then if you're not paying attention and you think everything is all good, that female could be suffering from a bite that you could tend to with antibiotics from getting infected, or wash with iodine because it technically needs a flesh wash. Um, things like that. I have to those those get tiring. I have to do those quite often, just because sometimes my timing isn't so great, and
yeah.
more so of actually they just started fighting because of food. one got food faster than the other, and there they
Yep.
go. So um, yeah, it's a bummer here because yeah, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, I technically have to move and do male rotations, right? So, I'll either lure him to the other side of the enclosure, put the partition down, and then feed them so they can't get to each other, right? Some of them are in enclosures where they're just together, and they're nice enough to not really need the partition. Um, but the male is just so eager to eat, right? And I have to pull him out, lure him into another enclosure, close that up, feed him, feed the girl, make sure she's done. And he can't really. Sometimes the girls are really shy until I leave the room is when they eat.
Yeah.
So they have to be done, and then I put him back. Yeah, it's a whole juggle, man, and those things get tiring when it's a dozen lizards that you gotta.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When I pull out the food, everybody's at the glass like feed me, feed me, feed me.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's some
It's
days, man, I just want to watch some Netflix. I don't want to go mess with.
yeah, yeah. It's
like, Stranger Things is out. I want to watch some Stranger Things. I don't want to play with lizards right now. Uh,
I don't want to have to separate lizards from freaking lashing onto each other. It's weird, man. Like they'll bite each other and there's no blood, and then sometimes
yeah.
they bite each other and there's so much blood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I notice that sometimes with the sand monitors, the way just depends. Most of the time, there's nothing. Every once in a while, it's like they bite something. It's like, what did you do that for? They're
yeah,
just chasing each other around for a piece of food. But yeah, same thing. It's like, so I got a broom right next to their cage that I whack them in the head with. Or I use as a little separator for the male because he's visual for whatever. He'll have a mouthful of food, and I throw something to the female, and he's off and running.
yeah.
And but she
Have
gives him a good
food.
whack in the face sometimes. She'll tail whip him in the face. But man, yeah, I'm still loving messing with the animals, but I think I needed a little break for a little bit, and I
Yeah, yeah.
kind of just shut stuff off in the middle of the day. I'm like, all right, you guys are done for now. And
Yeah.
are you? Let's see, is that the right question? Are you feeding heavy right now?
Um, Not heavy, but I'm a lot more than I was a few months ago. Yeah, that's for sure. I'm basically back
Yeah,
onto every other day feed. Technically, the females get full, the males get enough, and really that's it. But it's been where I'm at the point where I have to remind myself it's been a day. You can feed now. I'm not feeding a ton every
yeah,
day because I that's not really how I feed. I don't really need to feed that much, and yeah, so I space it out good 3 or 4 times a week for sure. Yeah, that's where.
because you're operating on that other hemisphere type of schedule, right?
Yeah. So I mean, not really. It's it's me
Okay.
now trying to work in summer when before I would never really work in the summer. So I took advantage of because during winter time they were breeding a ton, so I had to stop them. I technically was realizing, man, you're like 5, 6, 7 clutches in. I have to stop you, So
Yeah.
I had to end up doing that, and really when it was June is when from March, April, May, June. Yeah, so during those few months, I just cut everybody off of a lot of food. Only the two bulbs that they had on, I turned it down to one. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so then I'm really trying to see how it would be this time, this this summer. Just to really, because I normally never breed in the summertime. I normally never
Yeah.
have try not to have too many eggs, just because the temperatures are too crazy. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
just nuts. So it's more so trying to keep things cool. While I'm keeping things cool, I'm not really trying to breed. So, but now, yeah, I've been able to manipulate them as long as I can trigger their food and appetite. Most of the females will go into some type of reproductive event once I started feeding again. So
Yeah.
that's technically what I try to do is just control it, and seeing how it works. So far, I'm one clutch in to only being a month
Right.
in, so it's not really not really bad at all so far. And I think I have another female that's gravid. She's not eating a ton, but she's eating, and she's starting to be picky about the size. And her belly is big, and her tail is starting to collapse, or just looks
Yeah.
deflated a little bit. It's not yet collapsed; it's just starting to look loose, you know. So she can either be at the very beginning or coming on to now only about 2 weeks away from laying. And so um, I'll be able to tell when she starts and stops eating, really, and how
Yeah.
she uses and how big she is. Yeah, that's then of course I think you've seen me share just the last couple of days of the Kyle and stuff together. Um, I have I have two peer pairs together right now, so
Nice.
that's yeah, that's the other two that I mentioned. One's the cross that I have with the bonded pair, and then the mangroves, the regular Solomon Island mangroves, are what has already produced. Yeah, so just yeah, man, just trying to stay on top of it as much as I can with trying to not be so engulfed in it. That's the I don't know, the goal right now. If you want to say, just to
Right.
not be so burnt out. Still love it, right? So I have to like, I don't know, draw some kind of line. And I did. I've basically been getting rid of all the extra stuff. I guess reptiles as a whole, you know what I mean? Just like
Right.
just the extra stuff. So as I'm like, it's like a numbers game on what I like the most, or what I want to produce, what I want to put my all in, essentially, right? And then having to think about all these other cool stuff that I've been dreaming about having forever, and eventually able to afford it, to only then kind of be like sort of overwhelmed with so many things. So just getting rid of a lot of the extra little stuff that I didn't need, extra pairs of dwarf monitors and things like that, and just yeah, just keeping what I think is a good number for me, because I was just trying to add on, as much as I can, more and more
Yeah.
Kimberleys or more babies, and just trying to be really just replenish the numbers again. But then I realized, man, like, do I want to have 5 or 4 breeding pairs of Kimberleys? It's like, I mean, sure, those are great
Ooh.
numbers, but the amount of stress that each clutch brings. The females going into it, in and out of
Yes.
it, right? That's one set of stresses, and then the whole other stress of dealing with the babies and the eggs, and damn, am I going to kill them this
Yeah.
time? And um, how am I hatching them? And not that I've been doing so bad the last couple of years. It's just now I want to put that energy, because there's only so much energy that you have for the day, and then let's
Right.
say you have 20 monitors. I mean, I just basically drew the line at 10 and 12. That's it. That's all I really want right now. So I got rid of all the extra little stuff, and just really trying to now focus on the little Kimberleys that I do have left, and then the mangroves, and
Mm-hmm.
that's it. The Colei stuff and the traditional Solomon Island stuff that I have. They're pets, and at the same time, they're projects. I care for them in both fashions. It's just that's the thing, is like, I didn't want to just have them sit around, and
Right.
technically just be novelty pets that I wasn't really given a care about. I actually do care about these lizards a lot, and they're dream animals, and so I'm really trying to commit to the project. So that's why I've had to
Right.
draw the line about what all the extra stuff I can have, all the random reptiles, the turtles and tortoises, and yeah, I just told myself, all right, I gotta have to be smarter about, even like, I thought I had a lot, and I thought I cut back a lot before, but now it's like, okay, there's so much. You want to expand with grasshoppers, the monitors, the mangrove stuff is going to be taken off if you're going to go this route, and it's you get closer and closer because I hatched a coal island, a coals monitor earlier this year, but that ended up dying, and so
Hmm.
I'm trying to have a better turnout to my year. Um, and so yeah, I just decided it's that time um, where you're faced with so much and can only pick so much.
Yep. Yeah, I hear you completely. Like, there's only certain animals I really spend some time interacting with, if I get it, because I don't have time to really go around with each group of animals and like the Dorianus. You know what?
It's a lot
I'm
of
just gonna
work,
have to.
man. It's a lot
Yeah,
of work. It's a shit ton of
yeah.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess partially it's favoritism. There's a few of the tree monitors that are just super sociable. They like watching me. They like being out, and they'll take food off the tongs. They'll crawl up on my hands, and credit to that species just kind of being that way because these are all wild caught animals. So that's actually really impressive. The Kims are super friendly. Ackies are super friendly, but they got to determine that you're not food first. So that gets interesting sometimes. But once they determine that they can't eat you, they're still pretty curious and fun to mess around with. And then I absolutely love the sand monitors. I interact with them most of the time. I go in there, I'm interacting with the sand monitors. I'll leave the door open for the cage. They can come out. It depends on what I'm doing, but they can come out for a little bit. I just like having them around. And they know now it's like, okay, it's time to go back in the cage. They still might get a little huffy and kind of, flex up on me a little bit, but there's no tail whipping or biting. I just grab them by the tail base and underneath and put them back in the cage. But like the all the Timor monitors, the peacocks, the Similis, the truth is, I don't know if I'll ever get a real good chance to interact with those animals like I want to. I'm hoping with babies, I can bring some of the groups of babies, if I ever am so fortunate to hatch some out, home and then raise them in the house. Maybe it'll be different. But,
Man,
other than that,
I saw a picture of Krusty sharing a memory. Man, he shared this picture of a Similis, and it was like 2.5
huge.
feet long. Yeah, it was huge, man. I didn't know
Yeah.
it was that big. Yeah,
I
that's a
think there's I think there's a lot out there. I think there's just like I think there's some dwarf Argus somewhere, which I would love. I think there's some really big dwarf monitors in different locations too.
yeah,
It would
yeah.
just make sense
The
with all the
technique.
variation of like what you see with what would be considered the Indicus family.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
The lizard was a lot bigger than what people are considering adults now. That's for sure. The
yeah,
ones that are now are like big. They're like subadults or big juveniles. The one that you
yeah.
see a lot of people post up and stuff. I think yours are technically some like big juveniles, right? They're not really big on that size yet.
They're getting there. So two are adults. One is a smaller adult, but they're all adults by now. Um, but yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see what comes. I wish I could take a trip over there and just see with my own eyes.
Yeah,
But
fine.
who knows if I'm even gonna find anything when I
Yeah.
go over there. But I know
Go.
there's a lot of variation. Yeah, but yeah, you see sometimes some of these old pictures of things like I haven't seen a really big Dorianus in a while, but I remember when we first started seeing them, some of these things were massive.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I don't know why or why not. I mean, you got different size water. I guess water monitors would be a good indication of the variation. They're all considered maybe a water monitor, but you
Yeah, I
have them
think
from like 5 to 7 feet or somewhere
right.
in between.
There's a lot of the 5 and 5 6 footers now. The Celebensis and
Yeah,
all those, yeah, all the other ones that are kind of a little bit more meaner though. But
yeah,
yeah, they're like the Symphavas and things like that. But they only get that 4 to 6 feetish. That's a more manageable size for some people, I'd say, if they want to work
right,
on work on that animal. Um,
right.
yeah.
And they're awesome. I still think like a huge 7 foot sulfur is a very impressive animal, but man, that's a big water monitor.
Yeah.
But they're just cool. I love that. I don't even know what to describe their coloration as. It can be a variation of, it's almost like pale green, like I don't know. It's the same thing that gets me with Gray's monitors. They have a certain coloration scheme you don't see too many other places. So
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
dig that.
So different shades of olive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, something else I guess I'll share with everybody that I found out. So I have the incubator at the warehouse, right? It's a big incubator. In the winter, or I'd say late winter, early spring, when I was getting clutches of dwarf monitors into spring, the humidity was really low. We're talking like 10 to 15% throughout the day. Unless it would rain in the winter, it would spike for a little bit, but the humidity here is really low. As the temperatures so what I did at the time, because I started noticing eggs indenting, was to put like a moist paper towel on top of the eggs, which would fill back out. But as an experiment, I would leave some larger standing bowls of water in there with a good surface area. And in the winter, the way that the incubator works, there's 2 fans that circulate the air, but the fans also can generate their own heat. So I have to be careful. In the winter, it's fine because the heating element will actually turn off, but the fans were still going, and it would control itself just fine. But now, when the ambient temperature inside the warehouse can reach 85 degrees, the heating element will turn off, but the fans still operate and will generate heat, and so I'd get some spikes with the heat still inside the incubator. So I plug everything in to the power strip that's controlled by the thermostat, right? So now the fans would shut off, and they'd only kick on when the heating element would kick on, circulate air just a little bit, but it seemed to work fine. The issue is with those standing bowls of water that I put in there, when the temperature increased and the ambient temperature increased and natural humidity inside of the warehouse increased, now that I'm at like a 50% humidity level inside the warehouse with the swamp cooler running, the inside of the incubator was too humid for the eggs. It's almost like they were dry land suffocating. So I was getting some kind of crappy clutch and hatch rates, and I wasn't figuring out why, because this was my solution. This was my answer in the winter, but I didn't realize it was now working against me as the seasons changed. So once I pulled those things out of there, I've gotten through most of the crappy clutches. So I still have clutches that were early enough where they didn't get too affected by that oversaturation. Now that I've pulled those water bowls out of there for a little while, seems like the eggs look better. They look healthier. I'm still maintaining about a 50% humidity inside of the incubator. The actual individual containers might be a little higher, just because the substrate, the water that's mixed into the medium inside the containers. But yeah, I was killing eggs by having them too wet, and with the swamp cooler, it adds more humidity in the room. So stupid mistakes, always having to adjust. I should have known this, but yeah. I will for sure next season. And yeah,
that's all about fast footwork, man. Being able to move on your toes with just the imbalance, you know. Yeah, you got to figure out, damn, what the heck's going on with stuff. Man, I was having.
I was going to say those Govies, because I know you got a couple of the sensors. Yeah. Man, those, I should have got those earlier too, because now I can see. I just had one in the incubator for a while, but now I can see throughout the warehouse, and those help keep it within certain ranges a lot. But sorry, I interrupted there.
No, you're good, man. Just really trying to stay on top of everything myself. I got to think about what I got to do after this, just because.
Yeah.
Man, the season's kicking back in, and I'm technically just lining up. You know, I got to make sure all the nest bins are good.
Oh man, yeah.
I got new nesting bins coming in too for the other cages that just have random females that are just solo females. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I'm no longer using the bin because there's that gap around the backside or the back left hand side or whichever way you're pushed into the corner. But I hate that space.
Yeah.
So I ended up making just or having a friend make some nest bins with proportion size holes that I don't have to cut out of the top. You know what I mean? It's actually some decent stuff. And then it's got a port where I can, in the wintertime, shove a heat pad into the side of it if I need to. The
Nice.
top, what I had him do before were those that PVC sleeve with the heat pad that goes on the inside. And one of the cons about having that was that soil would end up getting into the inside of it, and then
Mm-hmm.
I eventually, yeah, that got annoying. So I took all that out, and I just have it, sitting outside. But we, try to design something a little bit different where it still utilizes the heat pad on the side of the bin, but it's safer, it's protected, it's less likely going to get stuff into it. Um, and so yeah, that's where uh, battling ants and dealing with these nest bins and dude, I've had ants move into my nest bins, right?
No, that's the worst. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I had designed to get a different nest bins. Not that they're going to keep ants out, but it's just like I was like, man, I got to get. It's time for something better. I basically
Yeah.
been trying to upgrade and give my animals better things, and yeah, it's really all. That's all it's been lately too. Is all right. How can I um, feel like I'm staying on top of their necessities and not just having them try to breed for me. You know what I mean? I just want to
Right.
be able to give them and replenish what I've taken, and at the same time as making sure that they're healthy and they got the best stuff. If I want to have them for long term stuff like that. So that's why I got the UV just to see if I get better results and give them better lighting, and then at the same time just changing up quite a bit. So as much as I like have to choose between grasshoppers and monitors every day, um, I still make sure I have time to do the monitor stuff with just how much there is to do. I can't slack on it, so I choose to you know do a bit here and there, a bit here and there, just to
Yeah.
stay on top of everything. Yeah, man, it's nuts. That's the only thing that's really been on my mind lately, just to make sure that, damn, there's a lot to do, but I still got to do it.
Yeah, man. It's kind of like reevaluating, huh? It's like finding
Yeah,
that motivation again. Like, all right, this isn't gonna get done unless I do it.
yeah,
And it's yeah. It seems like when you're in those kind of like off seasons right now. Summer's kind of an off season, you can say. There's still things going on, but um, it kind of mentally beats on you too because
yeah.
people are doing things in the summer. And
I'm normally not doing so much, so that's probably why it's also beating on me because I gotta avoid the day where I get up early, have to do a bunch of stuff earlier in the day. Because man,
yeah,
once it's 12, 1 o'clock, you're not working anywhere at 99 degrees, you know,
right,
and so
right,
I have to wait until 4 or 6 o'clock, sometimes even a little later than that because it's still pretty hot. So let's say 7 or 8 is when I basically bounce back to life. You know what I mean? And
yep,
do things all until the late night again.
yep,
Um, yeah, so most of my lamps are on at nighttime, so there's that. Plus, the animals aren't sleeping while I'm trying to do the majority of my work. I'm actually there while they're awake. So, because my inverted day and night cycle, that's what I have.
yeah,
They're on at nighttime. For those of you guys wondering what kind of lighting setup I have, it's because before I used to adopt this because I'd be at work all day. So then I would never see my monitors when I came home, go to dinner or have dinner and go to sleep, right? You're not really doing a whole lot after a long day. But I adopted this because I'd be working all day, come home at 7 or 8 or whatever you're coming home at, and then basically the monitors have already had a full day, and their lights will be off. So now or for this last several years actually, um, so I can monitor their behavior, technically get a one up on them. You know what I mean? Be out and doing things and um, technically having to sacrifice my sleep though. That's the sucky part. So
Yeah.
sacrificing my sleep, but they're up when I'm home, so I can at least peer over there and and do things. Monitors, literally monitors. Yeah, that's why I have that whole setup. But now I've also adopted it because the heat, in the daytime, especially in the summertime, man, it's just I'm actually trying to battle the heat where
Yeah.
I try to keep it cooler so that way they're warm enough or they're hot enough but not too hot. And so heat, as we talked about, heat itself can be a quick killer if it's not maintained. So for me to have the lamps on right now, or more so of during the normal photo period of daylight and things like that, yeah, I have it on. I have it set up differently, and yeah, it works out fine. They almost can't tell the difference, and they just adopt to the lamp. That's
Yeah.
it. They figure out when it's going to be on. They know when
They
it's
really
on,
do.
and they'll come to it. They know. So as
Yeah.
some people
I would
are,
love to keep things natural. I would love to. There's like even a skylight that's unfinished. I would have to finish some more in the attic to use it to have the light cycle on naturally. But in some like with my setup, I'm working against myself to do that. If I ever get the chance to build a building at home, and I can kind of build it subterranean the way I want to, I can maybe get away with that because it'll stay a little bit cooler to allow that. But with captivity restrictions, it's hard to, you want to give them a natural cycle. That means you want it hottest when it's the middle of the day. So you want all your lights on. But
yeah,
that doesn't work out in reality because that's adding extra heat into the building. And you
yeah.
can't do that. You're going to overheat your animals. So you got to find ways around it.
And there'd be heat lamps that, let's say, if you're on a temperature controller, it basically be turning off a lot and then actually limiting the amount of time frame that you have to bask. So let's
Yeah.
say if you are on a strict hour, your hours are pretty strict all the time, right? Let's say like some people that aren't strict use 24/7 lighting or only lighting for part of the day and then that's it. But some people are they're adamant on all right, 12 hours this time, 14 hours this time. Sometimes it's only 8 hours on, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
these animals have to bask. Now, not all the time is it just going to be a regular. The lambs come on, the lizards come out, and that's it. It's not actually how it always works at all. So sometimes the females, or even the really scared animals, they don't come out at all until you're gone.
Right.
They,
Yeah.
the females don't come out at all until the male's gone. And I have some that are like that. They basically, um, yeah, they can miss hours or miss a day basking if it's interrupted. If they
Mm-hmm.
feel like if it's not safe to go outside or not safe to be out basking, they'll hide and they'll hide until they die. And that's basically why I recommend being able to have sort of a somewhat uninterrupted photo period when you do need to have it, a necessity for breathing or basking or just the normal thing. While your lamps are on in the nighttime, I mean, while your lamps are on in the daytime while it's extremely hot, it's basically fighting with it, and your temperature controllers will just shut everything off all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, your amount of hours decreases, and it can be bad for a female that if she only really needs to bask a couple hours of the day, and she doesn't have that, then there goes that that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
On that note, I guess I'll mention um, I have those cages that I built, the crates, right?
yeah,
And a few of them, I there was a shortage on doors at IKEA that I use for these doors, that I couldn't get in time, and when I was building the cages, so I decided that it might make sense to use some of these with only one door on there. So only half of the cage is actually a glass door that I can see into. But to use it with some of the shyer animals, and man, it actually I think helped out a lot, especially with the Timorensis family of monitors. For that same reason, is it'd be on the usually I'd set it up on a far side, so they're not actually able to see me or me see them unless I'm purposely got to go into their cage, and then their food and water dishes are right at the opening, so I can quickly get to them and get back out of there. But their basking spot is in the middle, but more towards the portion that's covered, right? With enough room on that side to also get into a hidden spot where they can stay hidden and get cool enough if they want to cool off. It's one of the reasons it's towards the middle. But I think for that reason, it's also helped. I wanted to, in the future put those other doors on there, but I think I'm just going to leave them off for some of these wild-caught species because it actually allows them the ability to feel hidden from me, or kind of like that tree hollow mentality. They never actually have to see me. They can hear me coming and get to a hiding spot. We never have to look each other in the eye. And then, I'm starting to notice it's been a while now for some of these species, but like the tree monitors have caught on real well. They're pretty friendly. But some of the other ones, like the Dorianus, for example, besides the one I got from the buddy of yours, the other ones, it took them a while from babies to really get up to the point where I was getting the bluff charges, but now they'll start to like sit out and actually watch me for a little bit.
Yeah.
We still got about a 6 foot distance. Once I close that 6 foot gap, they're off and hiding. But it's interesting to see, and I might incorporate that same idea in other future builds where they got a part of the cage that's totally like theirs. I might build an access hole if it's a big enough cage to get into there, of course, but for the purpose that they know that basically if they're on that side of the cage, nothing's going to interfere with them, and unless I actually have to go in there and grab them because they've got a leg falling off or some business like that, then kind of treat them with that mentality. If you're over here, guess what? You're fair game, and it's also your choice if you want to be on this side of the cage to look at me, interact with me. But if not, that's your side of the cage. I'm never going to go into there. So just kind of messing with that idea, seeing how they respond to that type of thing.
Yeah.
I got to let my dog's bark in 1 second.
Yeah.
Come here.
What do you do?
Little freaking yapper dog. Come here. You want to come say hi to Kai? This is this started off. This was my wife's little yapper, right? And I swore I would never. So for the listeners, this is a little Chihuahua, little tricolored, black, white, and brown. I always swore I'd never have a little dog. Little dogs were just a waste of space to me. You might as well have a pet rat. And so I inherited this little guy when I met my wife, and yeah, I was wrong. He's kind of awesome. So
yeah.
I take back everything I said about them people with the little dogs. I take him on walks with his little harness. I'm that guy now. I'll be in the parking lot letting him go pee in the bushes.
Yeah, man. I never thought I'd have a cat. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought I'd love my cat the way I do. That's right there is like a normal that I have to be a part of every day. Like, I gotta chill.
Oh yeah.
I gotta chill with my cat. Yeah,
I love cats.
It's what's crazy is that we talk about monitor lizards, but man, what the things I would do for my cat, like,
right? Absolutely. Cat. If you get a good cat, man, cats are awesome. Some of the best pets I've ever had. Dogs are kind of like, you're still within this world of dogs. They're gonna, from here to here. Cats have such a wide range of personality, from total demons to like the best animal, come lay on your chest and purr type of put you to sleep animal. Oh
Right, yeah,
man.
exactly, exactly. Dude, mine is crazy. Like the other day, what's crazy is I was feeding some fuzzies right to these females. I rarely ever buy them, but I was like, all right, I'm gonna give them something, something that they like, bite size that basically will entice them, right? Like
Uh huh.
kind of keep them going when I started feeding them again, and so I bought a bunch of like big fuzzies, and man, they're one of them fell out of the bag. I didn't know, right? It was one of those like large, fuzzy, small
Yeah.
hoppers that can kind of get around, yeah, the wiener type size, yeah. Then my cat ended up bringing it to me, man, like just snuffed in her mouth, and she just dropped it, and I was like, yo, that's fucking tight. Yeah, man, it's that was like the last cutest thing that she did, dude. Yeah, then I took that thing and I fed it.
Man, we got this outdoor cat, and it's not necessarily a nice cat, but somehow it adopted us. And what they say about cats, like kind of feral cats, is true. This cat will, you'll see it sit there, and it'll just take lizard tails off. It doesn't care about the rest of the lizard. It'll just catch it by its tail until the rest of the lizard runs off, and it'll bring you lizard tails, and you're like, thanks, dude. Just. But that being said, we live next to the river. There's these like big, they call them these Norwegian rats, river
Yeah,
rats. I mean, they're
yeah,
huge rats. I haven't seen one of those around the house in a little while because of this cat. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, it's a
Man,
killer. And
I've been having to deal with pests too, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
man. So what they say, we get all these wildlife regulations and stuff coming down the pipe, but feral cats can do some damage to a population of things. I'm one cat can keep my house next to the river completely free of pests, anyways that I don't see them. So
yeah.
can you imagine what a group of them do? 20 in a neighborhood. Good lord. So, anyways, I won't go down that topic. It might get touchy for some people talking about that whole thing. Man, I with all this time, like we've been talking about being short on time. Honestly, I haven't even been able to update myself with what's going on lately as far as reptile laws. I keep seeing posts about them, but
Oh yeah,
um,
there was a gentleman or a couple that hatched out some crop monitors. I don't know if we talked about that at all. They
no, I
hatched,
didn't talk about it. I just saw the pictures and I like the
yeah,
pictures because I think
yeah,
that's
yeah,
awesome. But
same. But
yeah,
they hatched out in the sim, and they look, man, they're so small. I didn't think they were that small. Coming out,
just an illusion.
that's. I mean, I've heard about it being done, and there was like toothless reptiles or whatever that was trying to breed them, and then ended up dismantling their facility, whatever.
Yeah,
Um, but I guess he got some eggs, but I never saw like the babies out of that at all. And then there's some pictures that you see from like Indonesia and things like that. Heru, I think his name is. They hatched crop monitors in the last
yeah,
couple of years, right? But to see an American do it, or to see a person outside of Indonesia do it, I
it's
think
awesome.
this might be the first for me. Um, I don't. I mean, I
Uh,
think it
I,
might have been done before, but I just don't recall
yeah,
it. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Frank did it a couple times with the Crocs. I know he did lace, but I'm almost positive he did Crocs a couple times. Um, but I'd have to look back on that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I could say
So
about
it's,
90% sure he did.
yeah, so it's and that's probably a good what, almost 2 decades ago, right? So
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's
uh,
been a while for sure.
it's been pretty good with. That's probably why I don't recall it, because I don't remember that time. It's like so long ago. If I'm 30, dude, I was 10. So it's like, what do you know?
Yeah.
What did you know then? It's like so.
Right.
But looking at looking at that, man, it's like every year we add more and more to the game in America,
Mm-hmm.
in the states, on advancing how we do things here with breeding and new morphs, or even now monitors. Before it wasn't so many morphs, but now there's
Oh yeah.
actually morphs of wanting to make snows and knowing T positive, T negative monitors, and before what we had was like a guru line, and that's really that was really it,
Right.
until we started proving like that the sulfur is actually you can be hit for sulfur. So
That's crazy. Yeah.
right, and so then you can make your own sulfurs, and then they're just a vivitate that's got this other color tone on it, and really you can produce it with other vivitatis to make hets,
Yeah.
things like that. So I think that's how it goes. But yeah, man, it's crazy to see how much is elevated in the monitor game.
Yeah.
Every year there's something that's better introduced to the hobby, to the whole culture of trying to get all these hard species to produce. Because our looking at it, it's a thing that's talked about, but we won't take seriously until they're gone, until we can't get them in anymore,
Yep.
or like if you see in Florida, there things like these are being deemed technically um, nuisance animals, or we shouldn't have the pet trade. So, shoot, come down the line, if they consider a crop monitor to be like a Komodo dragon, where it's like completely illegal to have, if
Right.
I really not to bring that upon the crop monitor, because that would really suck if no one can buy them anymore. But man, they're a beast. They got
Yeah.
crazy teeth. They get big. Why aren't they already? So it's like if there was bad light or bad, uh, you know, news behind this lizard, that could basically be taken from us. Where
Yeah.
you're going to have to be some type of zoo facility to own one of these,
Yeah.
or yeah, things like that. So
We're pretty lucky out here in California, honestly,
yeah,
with our reptile laws so far. Now that could change quickly, I know, but right now we're actually a pretty decent state. Unless you like to keep venomous reptiles, there's quite a few regulations against that kind of stuff.
right.
I wish we could keep Gila monsters. But I mean, we keep beatids. There are ways around things legally to do things, but you know, we're pretty good so far. So hopefully it stays that way. Hopefully Florida is unique to Florida just because of their own habitat and whatnot. And I mean, things reproduce out in Florida. I can't wait to go on a Florida trip. Take me on a little swamp boat and let me see
Catch all
what's
the
out there.
bears. Catch
Oh
all
man,
the bears.
yeah, veils in the trees. To see a Burmese python doing its thing. I mean, this is me. I would get excited about seeing that kind of stuff. To see see iguanas and a Nile
'Cause
monitor
we
or
get freaking alligator lizards and bluebellies.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it'd be kind of cool to see a 3 foot lizard, and you didn't have to go to Mexico to go see it.
Absolutely, man. I mean, let's just. It kind of is what it is now. You'll see tegus out there. To me, that's kind of awesome in its own right. Of course, there's protecting the natural animals and foliage that's out there. The natural, what do they call it, biodiversity. But you're also seeing, I guess you could argue, a step in what kind of could be seen as evolution, even if it's influenced by man bringing things over. I got to imagine it's not the first time in history that we've done this. We're able to document it. I could imagine that some of these ships back in the past, that people were just bringing over these novelty type of things or bringing them back from other places that were visited. Similar things happened, and it just became part of whatever was going on there. And so things we might now say, hey, that's natural to this area. Maybe they never were natural to that area. I can think of a couple examples of that already, but You know, quick little story on that. There was a down in Big Bear. There's the lake, right? It was initially meant to be these different lakes for sport fishing, basically, and so they brought over these trout from, I believe, Ireland, and they had some type of other thing in their gills, some other type of life form. I forget what it was, to be honest. But anyways, so years later, this professor finds this same type of thing over here in Big Bear, and he gets it somehow protected because, the only other place in the world where these occur is Ireland. I'm probably messing up this story, but no, that's just where the initial fish were brought in from for this whole sport fishing thing that it never turned into, and got it protected over here. I guess I just bring that up because, I can't imagine how many other times it's happened in history where things have just come over. They've been on a boat. They've been on nowadays an airplane up in the landing gear or something along those lines. You have so you had ships full of potatoes because they lasted on a long voyage. On that ship, you had rats. What eats rats? You got something else hiding in a box somewhere. And as we know, with a lot of snakes, they can stay at what we would think was cold temperatures, but for months and be fine. And now they get brought onto some other non-native area and take off. I don't know. Maybe I'm just spitballing here and talking out my butt, but
that's somewhat how invasives happen.
Yeah.
Not all of it is all by the pet trade. It's like, let's say, okay, when I was younger, and I had a pet store in Sunnyvale, right? And basically we would get this rootwood, right? And we'd get it shipped into the warehouse. And then when we unloaded the warehouse, though, there'd be tons of spiders and geckos and things like that were living in there from the trip from Asia or wherever they came from. And so they came over, and we'd be unloading these things, and then it's like those geckos and all that stuff like that is basically now in the warehouse. Then they can easily go outside with the doors open, and then they populate on their own or establish on their own if they can basically adapt to what's around. Man, if they survived in the shipping container, they could probably survive a bunch of little stuff. Yeah. So.
Yep. There's truth to it. So we got to be responsible. We got to be careful with some stuff. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah. And there was another a recent customer. She bought fish from some South Carolina, and there was lizards that were in her thing. Yeah, yeah. She messaged me. She's like, "Did you send me lizards?" Like, no.
Not for free. Man, we are going way out. This is the Monitor Keeping Podcast, people.
We're just catching back up. We haven't had fun and random stuff in a while, and we're about to be done with this in a bit anyways. So.
Yeah, so you guys know I haven't talked to Kai in like 2-3 weeks, like an actual conversation. So you're getting to hear some of the crazy stuff that comes out of our mouth. There's the cat.
Yeah,
hey, Bella.
She just woke up. Oh, I'm just trying to get her to not meow.
She slept so long last night, she had to take a nap today. Yeah, so you talking shit?
She does this zoomies at nighttime, man.
Isn't that the best and worst at the same?
Yeah,
it's crazy when you see a cat running around until you hear stuff start knocking over and flying all over the place.
Knocking stuff over. Yeah, she's my cat. One time, bro, we're at a gas station and she was underneath the chair, and I thought somebody stole my cat. Right? I went and started. That's where I started asking people, like, did you take my cat? I was tripping.
That is crazy.
And then I go back to the car and she's under there.
Yeah. All right, man. We're about an hour and a half. You want to cut it here?
Yeah, we're good. We're just catching up with the world and getting back into it. We were supposed to record last week, but honestly, just my voice wasn't really feeling it, and yeah, I wasn't. I was basically doing stuff for the room and the grasshoppers and monitors, and just basically going back to knockout. So
Yeah.
yeah, now I feel bad. Feel back to normal, and we'll be able to get crank some more episodes. You got a couple weeks off, you said, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So
So
we can. I'll hit you up. We'll crank a couple out and
yeah,
see if there's a. I know that we've talked about a couple of people to come back on. We can reach back out, see what they're up to. What else is going on? That just monitor stuff. You mentioned the Croc monitors. Didn't there was another clutch of Rudy's, wasn't there?
oh yeah, the Robert Fox.
That's
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
he had some Celebensis also laid too. But
that's
yeah,
right.
I guess he's currently moving. He just finished moving, and so he dug this.
Oh, I think I caught that too. Yeah.
Yeah, he dug this Rudy clutch up. I think they've been in. They don't look brand new because they're when they're brand new, they're really oval. But then when they've been around
Yeah.
for a month or two, they start to bow out in
Fill
the
out.
center. Yeah, that's what they're at
Yeah.
right now. So I'd say a good month or two. So yeah, man, that's actually
awesome. Yeah,
really
that's
good.
absolutely
Yeah,
awesome.
really good for Rudy keepers out there. It's not gonna lie. Those are.
Yeah.
It's not that they're underrated. They're actually pretty highly rated, but it's just no one is really doing all that with them. Not a lot of people at all. So it's great
Right.
news.
And I know Claire that we had on early on. I think she lost her
Oh yeah,
animal. So just condolences for that. It was obvious just seeing your post about what you were doing, your plans for everything, how much you cared. So
yeah.
it's never fun losing an animal. So and then shoot. I would almost have to catch up on more news to give you. So you guys reach out to me, fill me back in. If you got something cool going on, hit me up. Sorry, life's been so busy, but still over here plugging away with the animals. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I guess Kai, where are people gonna find you?
I'm a little bit all over. You should be able to find me mostly on Facebook under Kai Fan. I'm also on Instagram under big_lizard103. You can find me on YouTube under Mangrove Mecca. Man, I'm a little bit everywhere. California Grasshopper, if you ever look that up. And then you can also find me on the Monitor Keeping podcast underneath the Morelia Python Network.
Yep. All right, guys, and same for me. You can find me on Instagram at origins_reptile, and on Facebook at Origins Reptile. As always, we are brought to you by the Morelia Python Radio Network. We're the Monitor Keeping podcast, but go onto their website. You can just Google it. They have a list of different shows. Eric keeps adding more and more and more. So there's now like a BOA podcast and all kinds of crazy stuff. So whatever you are into, you can now listen to pretty much weekly, bi-weekly, or whatever shows on that species, and you can get your head floating with all the different ideas and so much history about what people are doing, who's tried what. As we all do, it's like one reptile. Your corn snake's going to lead to your boa, going to lead to your python, going to lead to your monitor, then back to the corn snake. So jump in with both feet. Have fun with it. There's a lot of information out there, all brought to you by not only the Morelia Python Radio Network, but there's some other good people out there that are doing some really cool stuff. A lot of other podcasts. So it's great that we even have this all available to us to interact like this. We're not waiting for the next reptile magazine to come out anymore, with limited articles. You
I
can
used to collect all
almost
those.
ask live questions. Oh, yeah. I wish I still had a few of them, to be honest. A few of my favorite, articles in there. So, all right. Yeah, I think that's it. Kyle,
That is it.
I will end it here.